Hi everyone. So I was going to start out my presentation asking everyone to think about an image of a scientist at work. And then I was going to ask how many people pictured a male scientist and how many people pictured a female scientist. But Philip stole my bit. So moving right along. But that's okay, because she's a perfect example of a young woman in the STEM fields. So my presentation will hopefully fill in a little bit of the background. So as I said, the majority of us picture a man, a scientist with STEM. We think of this guy, or possibly these guys, depending on how old you are. But that's a problem, because I look out and I see a lot of young women in the audience, and I think that a significant and disproportionate number of young women, when they think of a scientist, they don't think of someone who looks like them, they think of a man. So the American activist Marian Edelman said that you can't be what you can't see. Now obviously, there are always pioneers. There are people whose passion and grit lets them succeed, even if they're the only woman in a class, for example. But it's true that this does have a negative impact on the overall success of women. The lack of role models is a big problem in STEM. So STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So you see here, even though women make up about half of the workforce, we're only about a quarter of the STEM jobs. According to the census, in 1990, 23% of people who worked STEM jobs were women. And in 2010, 26%. So that's 3% in 20 years, which I think is pretty sad. And as Lilibeth pointed out, in some fields that number is actually decreasing. So 1990, the Cold War was barely over. Most of the students here won 4 minutes. We can do better. And this trend continues even if you look at the higher levels of academia. So there are many reasons why this is true. And some of the reasons come about later in one's career, graduate school. And I'm very proud of the organization that I'm honored to be president of that tries to combat some of these later problems. But I have limited time, so I'm going to try and focus on an issue that affects the students in this room. And that's stereotype threat. Specifically, the stereotype that girls are bad at math and science. Which, for some reason, generation after generation, keeps picking up. Yeah. I think a lot of people's approach to stereotypes are, they're bad, but you should shrug it off, you should try and ignore it. And that's probably a very helpful attitude to take, but stereotypes are more than just annoying. They actually affect people's performances as a whole. So this is an early paper in 1999 talking about stereotype threat in reference to women's performance. You see in this control group over here, in this experiment, 2 groups of male and female students were given a math exam. In one group, they were just given the exam. They were told, we're just trying to find out the math performance of people in the state. And as you can see here, there's essentially no difference between the male and female students. In the second group, however, they were given the exact same exam, but before the test, they were told that this exam was trying to determine the differences between male and female performance, and that previous studies had found a gender gap. And you can see what a negative impact this has on women's scores. Obviously, there's always going to be outliers and high performers, but you can see what a terrible impact on performance this simple reminder of the stereotype has. However, I have good news. There are ways to try and counteract this phenomenon. In this study done in an introductory physics course, they divided again the class into 2 groups. These are introductory physics students, so people who care very passionately about math, about science, and who are also college freshmen and know a lot about sort of the stereotypes and social conditions out there. In these introductory classes, they found that in general, women did much more poorly on class exams. In the experiment, 1/2 of the class just went about the course as normal. the other half of the class had 2 writing exercises throughout the semester. One at the beginning of this class, and 2 right before the first midterm. And that simple writing exercise is just 2 minutes, where you're supposed to write about values that were important to you. And you wouldn't expect that to make a big difference, but as you can see, it really did. By reminding all of the students that, about what's important to them, about what their abilities are, about what their inspirations are, what their passions are, that helped everyone refocus on the task at hand, and everyone did better. So some of the guys in the audience may feel like I'm ignoring you, and I'm sorry for that. But you have a role to play in this too. This can be the first generation that gets rid of these insidious and harmful biases that we still hold, many people still hold. And that's important because, as you all know from the headlines, we have many, many problems in this world that need science and engineering solutions. And we simply don't have time anymore for half of our brain trust to be underperforming. And that's not my intuition, that's a fact.